Hello, and welcome to the first ever podcast of Dugout Talk. I'm Stephen Gossman,
I'm Cameron Lingle.
and we're here today to just talk about baseball. Like you said, this is the first ever podcast that we're recording, and we're hoping that we can gain some momentum and some traction to keep this going uh, all year round and then some from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just a little introductions to start off since this is our first one. Like I said, my name is Stephen Gossman, and I live in the Denver, Colorado area. I've been in and out of sports writing for the last 4 years or so. I worked for this little um, internet sports writing company called Real Sport 101. That was actually where I met Cameron. We
Yep.
were doing that for roughly a year.
Yeah. I signed on. Would have been like May of 18 or May
Yeah,
of
May of
17.
18. I came in September of 17. Unfortunately, there was just some politics that worked out that they decided to have a different focus, and
Yeah,
things just didn't work out to continue. But it was a great time.
absolutely.
And we still stay in touch with each other, obviously, and we had several other colleagues that we still stay in touch with, and just talk about baseball pretty much all year round. Baseball is
All
our
year.
is our number one sport, our number one love. Um, Really, is just it's a great game. I think it's one of those games that you have to really grow up to appreciate it, and you have to grow up around the right people to help you learn how to appreciate it. Both sides of my family are really big on baseball. My grandpa was the one who actually got me into it.
Okay.
Um, he and my grandma live in the Phoenix area, and so every summer I'd go down. Uh, Starting in 2010, we started going to Diamondbacks games every summer, and I grew a love for that fan base, for the team. Um, I think, yeah, like I said, it's just one of those sports that you have someone who can get you passionate about it. It's really easy to fall in love with. I don't know how much you agree with me on that, Cam, but
A 100%. 100%. It's just. I mean, it's the national. It's America's pastime. Like people would travel for miles. Before cars were even invented, they'd travel for miles just to go and watch some dudes play some baseball, and people still do it today.
exactly. It's fun to watch. I know that there's people there like, oh, this takes too long. There's no time limit. There's
Mm,
like, there's no guarantee that the game is going to end after a certain amount of time. It's like, well, that's why you got to learn to appreciate the game.
yep.
It's unique in that way. There's no timer. There's no set time that's like, oh, it has to be over. I mean, back
Exactly.
in back in the early days of the game when they didn't have lights in the
Yeah.
stadiums. Um, and I know that sometimes in the minor leagues they do this sometimes too on travel days where they might end a game early, but Major League Baseball is not like that. You don't see that in major leagues. You don't see that in college. You don't see that in high school. It's unique in its own way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I I'm born and raised it's like Central PA. So typically you would think Pirates. My mom's side of the family is not big into baseball. My dad's side of the family is all like Pittsburgh, Pirates, Steelers, Penguins, the whole nine. But for some reason, I don't know if it was because of how much my dad disliked them, but I don't know if it's just the big city lights, but I fell without any outside help fell in love with the Yankees. This is before I knew the 20 at that time the 26 rings, before I knew all the great names, all the Hall of Famers. I just fell in love with the team, and I have been so I've been a fan ever since like 2007 when I was just old enough to start watching them on TV and understanding like what's going on. And that's really about it. I joined Real Sport. I'd never thought about writing, never tried writing, really disliked writing in school, but for some reason it just kind of something just jump started in me early 2018. And come May, now I'm writing sports articles, and I loved it, and I loved seeing that I could contribute to something I loved, and then other people could look at it and also love it. Like there's something about that stuck with me, and I've been trying to do. some writing for some other smaller companies since Real Sport kind of let us go, but haven't really stuck with anything.
Yeah, it is a fun field for sure. I think I don't regret anything from
No.
that time. It definitely takes special people to do it because it can be demanding.
Yeah.
Um, but it is a lot of fun, especially when you're working with the right people and
Yep.
you all share the same passion and can just talk all day long about like just different topics going around the game, or even just talk about opinions about like what you want to see in the game and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's just great in that way. Um, but yeah, that's us. That is who we are. And we hope that as time goes on, we can bring on some guests on this show, even some of our old colleagues. We hope that we can bring
Absolutely.
them onto the show to just talk with us. And that's really what this podcast is about. Yeah, we're going to share big news stories that come
Yep.
on, especially as the regular season comes in. Right now, it's the off season. There's not too much to talk about. But as the regular season comes on, we'll have a lot more to say, to share. Um, it's just going to be a good time. We just want this to be a good outlet to um, for people just to listen to just like have time to relax, like just put a podcast on, and even just share your thoughts with us. We've got a Twitter handle now. We got a Facebook page. We're just slowly making these rounds, and we will start getting on Spotify here soon, as well as SoundCloud, um, just as the time goes on. So be on the lookout for us at Dugout Talk, and we'll post links in our YouTube video or in
Yep.
our YouTube page, so that you can follow us there. Yeah, so let's just talk about some of the quick stuff that took place over the weekend.
Yep.
It was relatively quiet. It's been a relatively quiet off-season camp, but
Yeah.
I think this weekend was probably the most active we've seen, at least since the winter meetings. First of all, the Yankees made some big splashes. Finally, they
Yeah.
finally did something. I know you were kind of just sitting there in angst.
I was really starting to get down about the whole DJ LeMahieu uh, opportunity to bring him back. Like, you would think it's a no-brainer. You would think it's the Yankees, the evil empire. They're going to do what they need to do to bring him back. And the fact that they waited so long to even really get into the advanced talks with him, I thought was crazy. I thought for sure that he would just jump ship. He didn't want to, but I figured he probably would. He'd probably go to the Dodgers, probably go to the Blue Jays or the Mets, some team that's going to offer him 25 million a year, 4 or 5 years, and he would just do that, and it would just be the bane of an existence watching him hit 350 with a bunch of runs driven in for a different team. But it seems like once they got that done, once they got DJ signed, everything else opened up. It was hours later, and they had a deal done with Kluber, and he's going to be like people. I've heard some people really down about it. I've heard some people really upset that he got 11 million. But I think for someone who prior to 2019 was not only a perennial All Star but a perennial Cy Young candidate, I think, a year, 2019, a year where he had maybe one start or two. 2020, I don't think he pitched at all last year, but it was a 60 game season. I don't know if you can sit there and say that he wouldn't have pitched in a 162 game season, but I think he's had some really good time off. And I think if he can give the Yankees, I don't know, 20 starts, 25 starts, maybe 150 innings or so, I think it'd be a great signing for that rotation.
Yeah, so just to kind of look at some of the inside numbers for Kluber from 2016 to 2018, those were his like perennial years.
Yep.
His three All-Star years. He won a combined 56 games in those 3 years. He was 56 and 20 in those 3 years. In 2018, he won 20 games and finished third in the Cy Young voting that year. But from 2019 to 2020, he started a collective 8 games
Yeah.
due to injury. And think the important thing to know with Kluber is he wasn't looking for a multi-year $1 million deal.
Mm-mm.
He came out and said that when everyone, I think it was 25 teams that went to his showing in Texas last week. After that showing, there were many teams that were super impressed with him, but he came out
Mm-hmm.
and said, uh, I don't want anything more than a 1 year deal."
Yeah.
And when you come out and say something like that, and I think, and in a lot of ways, I think it was smart of Kluber to do that, considering that he's only started in 8 games the
Yeah.
last 2 years, and actually even last season he didn't get a complete. He pitched 1 inning all last year
Yeah. Yeah.
before the shoulder injury took
I thought so. I knew it was
which
very little.
by the way, feel sorry for Texas Rangers fans there because
Yeah. Absolutely.
like they
Absolutely.
traded for him and they only
Yep.
got 1 game out of him the whole time. But yeah, I agree. I think it is a good signing for the Yankees. It's an affordable signing for the Yankees, especially during this time of the pandemic where we're not seeing the market move as quickly. Teams aren't really throwing out these massive contracts like we've seen the last couple of years. But I think it was a really smart move on the Yankees' part. And I think it's a smart move on Kluber's part. Used 2021 to prove himself again, prove that he still has it in him. Um, which, by the way, according to Baseball Reference, he's projected to be 5-3 with a 4.15 ERA this year.
Hmm.
So it's not bad. I mean,
No,
I think
no.
I think if he had an ERA in the four range,
Sure.
I'd say that's a pretty good success, especially with the era of baseball we're in now, where everyone's swinging for the fences and
Yep.
launch angle, trying to um, generate more offense. Like having an ERA of 4 in your first full season back after two
Yeah.
years off, like that's not bad at all. I would take
Not
that
bad at
anytime.
all. Absolutely.
Um, and
Yeah.
and even before that, the only thing the Yankees had done was traded for Greg Allen from the Padres.
Yep. So it was like Greg Allen. They signed Julius Chassin to a minor league deal, and they got some other dude. I forget what his name was, but it seems like DJ was kind of that great white whale. They were just waiting to land, and then once
Yeah,
that happened, the floodgates opened up.
yeah. It seemed like DJ. It seemed like both sides all along were trying to work something out. It was just when the deal ended, it seemed more like it was just a numbers based thing.
Yeah.
Like I think deep down we all knew he was gonna go. He was gonna go to the Yankees. I think everyone knew that. As much as people may want to deny it, I think
Yeah.
everyone knew to some degree he was going to go to the Yankees. And it also came out last week that the Blue Jays had actually matched the offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Both teams were sitting. I believe it was somewhere around 4 years. Um, I want to say it was around 75 million.
yeah, that's yeah, 4 years, 75 million, 78 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Both
Yeah,
teams were sitting around there. And then I'm genuinely surprised that the Yankees got him essentially for 15 million a year. I understand they had to add a fifth and a sixth year onto it, but I mean it's almost kind of it's a win-win in the fact that this is probably going to be DJ's last contract he ever signs. He'll be 38 or 39 by the end of this deal. And the Yankees are only paying him 15 million a year, and this is a dude who's had multiple MVP votes the last 2 years in pinstripes. So whether he continues to be La Machine or whether he regresses back to just LeMahieu, I think it's a good solid signing. He can play multiple infield positions, and I don't think he's not one of those big power guys. He's not a Pujols where once he hits his mid 30s, he's just gonna fall apart like a Pujols, a Cabrera, even Chris Davis. Like I don't think he's like that. I don't think he's gonna fall apart because all he does is just get base hits. Like that's just all DJ does.
yeah. And I mean, and I know a lot of people argued that when he left the Colorado Rockies, that he's
Mm-hmm.
going to come back to Earth.
Yep. The
No,
course field.
he hasn't even done that. You know,
No.
in his 2 years with the Yankees, he's hit 336.
Yeah.
He led the league this year. I know it was only a 60 game season,
Yep.
but he led the league in hitting with 364 average. So, and yeah, you're right. DJ's not like a major home run hitter by any means. I know he hit 26 homers in
Yep.
2019, um, but he's a guy who's going to hit for average. He's going to put the ball in play. He's not going to strike out. And I'm sure maybe I don't think the 26 homer season was a fluke by any means. I
No.
think he's always been
No.
capable of that. It's just when he was with the Rockies, that wasn't his focus. He wasn't trying to hit for
Yep.
power.
And
And even
just kind of how I'm sure there's a lot of doubles that DJ had in Colorado that would be that ended up being home runs um, at the stadium just due to the short porch. I know it's overplayed, it's over talked about, but there were quite a few wall scrapers out to right field that DJ hit.
oh yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
whether I don't think he's going to ever match or beat 26, but I think he can definitely be capable of 20 homers a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think 20 homers is reasonable for him. Whether he tries to do that or not, um, again, I don't think Paul Powell, or he's not trying to hit homers when he goes up there. I think it's pretty obvious. Just kind of watching him play over the years, but he has the capability to do it.
Yeah,
The power is kind of like an added bonus for the Yankees, but that's not why they signed him.
of course.
It's actually kind of crazy because in 2019 he didn't start on opening day.
Mm-mm.
He
No, he
wasn't
didn't.
projected to actually be like a regular everyday player.
Yeah, no. When I was genuinely shocked that we even got him. Like we weren't really in the market for an infielder. Like yeah, DJ or not, geez, not DJ. Didi had just left, and so or no, DJ was there in 19.
Yeah, Didi left in 20
Yeah, man, it feels like it's been 2 years.
at Tommy John though, so
Yes,
he didn't
yes.
start
So
here right away either.
I actually thought that DJ would just kind of be super utility, maybe like a 270, 285 hitter, a couple home runs, did some decent defense. I knew he was a Gold Glover, but I kind of thought that it would be Troy Tulowitzki's job to lose. And boy, how wrong I was proved on that one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even in the Rockies when DJ first came up to Colorado, he wasn't projected to be their starter.
Yeah.
He was fighting with Josh Rutledge at the time, but he ultimately won the job.
Yeah.
One, because Rutledge dealt with injuries and eventually had to fall out there. Two, because the Rockies saw the value in DJ. He
Yeah.
would consistently get on base, make contact with the ball, put the ball in play, and he ultimately won the second base job there. I think the hard part for the Rockies was as badly as they wanted him, they knew they weren't going to be able to afford him long term.
Yeah.
But the Yankees did make a good signing. I think that the 6 years and 90 million is very affordable.
Absolutely.
For them as well. Even though like the Yankees have the money, they could have probably offered him more if they really wanted to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But they did. This is definitely an affordable contract for them.
Yeah. I think in a pre-COVID season, I think it would have been a lot higher. I think he would have easily been over 100 million, and it may have even been a shorter contract at over 100 million. Like there were talks that he was looking for like 25 million a year. So I think in a season not ravaged by COVID, I think he would have signed a lot sooner, and I think he would have signed for definitely a lot more.
I agree with that. I think because, like I said, COVID definitely put a part into the reason why this offseason has been rather slow.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
But I think DJ would have definitely signed for more had it not been for the COVID shortened season.
Yep.
Another free agent news, though, the Angels made a relatively big signing. They upgraded at catcher. They signed
Mm-hmm.
veteran Kurt Suzuki.
Yeah, the Angels. I saw this as I was browsing Twitter. Like they seem to like their aging catchers because they had Jonathan Lucroy as their opening day starter in 2019. Um, I forget who they had last year. Oh, Jason Castro.
Yeah.
They had him playing last year. Now they got Kurt Suzuki. All these guys are in their mid 30s. Kurt could provide some offensive numbers, maybe some offensive numbers they don't normally see from a catcher, but I don't see where they're really getting better.
Yeah, the Angels are kind of in.
Definitely a very small time signing.
Yeah, the Angels are kind of in a weird place. They obviously brought in a new general manager in a Perry Manason. Um, they're kind of, I don't know. It's hard to describe where the Angels are because in a way they could be good this year,
Yes.
but we've also seen where on paper they look like a really good club, and then
Yeah.
things just fall apart. Whether it's because of pitching, which that's been the majority of their issues
Oh
over the
yeah.
years, is their pitching staff can't stay healthy for the life of them, and then their bullpen, they've been super inconsistent over the last few years. I think Suzuki is a good cheap signing for them. You know,
Definitely.
he's a veteran catcher who has experience with winning. He
Hmm.
knows how to get pitchers to be successful. I don't have the exact inside numbers on how pitchers do with Suzuki, but he's
Yeah.
very well liked in organizations he's gone to in the past. He was on the Washington Nationals
Hmm.
World Series team. He was with the Braves. He's been with the Braves on and off these last
Yep.
couple of years with their successful runs. Um, he was with the Oakland A's during their
Hmm.
successful years. So, I mean, he's got a very good resume. He's very well liked around the league. Um, and again, this is kind of a cheap signing where the Angels might get something from him, but it's more so he's just a catcher who can kind of help the pitching staff and hopefully be a leader in that clubhouse
Yeah.
to help them get over that hump. Because the Angels have been one of the more disappointing franchises
Really,
over
really
the last
have.
year. And I know everyone's been talking about how like, oh, Mike Trout, they have Mike Trout. They should be the best team in baseball, and they've only made the playoffs one time since he
Once.
debuted in 2011.
Yep.
And what happened? They got swept out of the
Swat.
division.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
it seems kind of criminal that the Angels have just been in this position of like they should be a good team. Like on paper they look great, but when the season comes into play, everything just falls apart. It feels like, and whether it's because of bad luck injuries or just guys aren't performing like they expected them to. Um, and I think the good thing about this is much like what they've done with guys like Jonathan Lucroy and Jason Castro, they're movable contracts.
Hmm.
So if things do go south really quickly for them, Suzuki's an easy move. They can easily send him somewhere to a team that could benefit having him
Oh yeah.
trying to
A
get to the
veteran
postseason.
catcher presence. Yep.
Exactly. So I don't. I'm not. This is a good signing too. I think. And who really knows how much longer Suzuki actually has?
Yeah.
He's been relatively healthy over the years, so I
He
wouldn't
has.
imagine that he's thinking about hanging it up. He has been. He's entering his 15th major league season, coming into
So he's
2021.
he's he's probably what 36, 37 now, maybe
He's
35,
37 right
37.
now. Yeah, he'll be 38 in October.
Hmm.
So who knows? Maybe he still has a little bit in him. This could just
Yeah.
be like maybe this is kind of his last resort. Who really knows what he's up to at this point? But again, I like the signing. I think
Hmm.
it's a good little emergency deal, I guess, just to get a catcher out there. Um, I know the Angels were in the Kluber sweepstakes. They've kind of been. They're still looking for starting pitching.
Yeah. I think like I understand it's a lot of money, and I understand it's a lot of money to stack beside a Trout, a Pujols, for how much longer he's there, and a Rendon. But they really, really need just that number one guy. Like they could really benefit from a Trevor Bauer. Really could.
Yeah, Trevor. I think I've talked with my cousin about this a lot because he's an Angels fan, and so he
Mm-hmm.
keeps me kind of updated on like what the team is doing, and he shares his thoughts a lot just on the team in general. Um, I think Trevor Bauer would be great in Anaheim, to be completely
Mm-hmm.
honest. And it's not just because the Angels are in dire need of a starting pitcher, but the manager Joe Madden,
Yep.
he's he's kind of, I don't know. It's
He would be a great fit for the kind of personality that Trevor Bauer has. Like
yeah,
they're both very laid back. They both they're both brand builders. Like Joe Madden has always had that personality where he can just somehow some way get his players to perform almost at their peak. Like he took guys, like Ben Zobrist and turned him into a World Series MVP. I have no doubt that with the way Trevor Bauer carries himself and the way Joe Madden carries himself, that they would be a great fit in a clubhouse.
they'd either be a great fit or it would be a disaster. I
Yeah.
guess there's no real in between on that. But
Mm-mm.
I think the two would get along pretty well for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, and looking at the Angels starting rotation last year,
Yep.
they had Andrew Heaney, Dylan Bundy, Griffin Canning, Pat Sandoval, Jaime Burria, and Julio Tehran. And Tehran ended up getting demoted to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Dylan Bundy was actually really good for them last year.
He was. He
Uh,
was surprisingly good.
I think getting out of Baltimore helped him because Camden
Getting out
Yards,
of getting out of Baltimore helps seemingly everybody.
yeah, because that's a hitter's paradise out there.
Yep.
At least, I mean, Angel Stadium can play hitter's paradise too, but it's not as
Yes.
susceptible to the long ball as
Yep.
Camden Yards is. So he was 6-3, 3.29 ERA last year in 65 and two-thirds innings pitched. He only
Hmm.
allowed 5 homers in 11 starts too. So I mean, that's a good step, but again, the starting pitching has just been they've been ravaged
Yeah.
by
And
injury.
it's crazy to see them make the moves like they have, locking up Trout long term, and snagging Anthony Rendon, but yet at the same time have a rotation made up of essentially like baseball nobodies. Like
Right.
Griffin Canning is a decent prospect, but he's had what roughly 2 years. He's been in the league now for 2 years, I believe. I think 19 he
Yep.
debuted,
Yep. He debuted in 20.
and hasn't really been spectacular. Like even if they went the way the Giants did, the Giants picked up Alex Wood. Even if they just go and get a couple guys. There are plenty of veteran starting pitchers. Go get. I know Masahiro Tanaka has made it clear that if the Yankees don't want him, that he would go back to Japan. But I'm sure you could convince him. I'm sure you could convince. There are a few guys out there, just veteran innings eaters that the Angels could pick up just to sustain the pitching to let the offense take over. Like Shohei Ohtani, I don't know if he's going to be able to hit this year. I'm not sure about pitching. I forget what injury he was dealing with over the winter,
Well, we know
but
He had Tommy John
mm-hmm,
in 2019.
yes,
Was it 20? It was 2019. He
I
was running.
believe so.
Um, yeah, I
And I
can't.
forget I forget if he did any hitting in last year. I didn't
He
follow the Angels
was
too closely.
he was primarily a hitter last year. He did pitch a little bit for them.
Mm-hmm.
He made 2 starts.
Okay.
He played in 44 games on the offensive side for the club. He only hit 190 though, so
Oh, okay. I knew he wasn't. I knew he had a very down year,
yeah.
but
And there's still some speculation as to whether or not he'll actually be able to pitch.
okay.
And
I knew that,
because
but I mean,
he hasn't proved himself on the mound. He's
yeah,
trying to be a two-way player, which is amazing, but it just
yeah,
hasn't really um, it hasn't worked out. I think the way the Angels were hoping that it would work out.
yeah. It's just some tough luck. Just some tough luck that they have to try to work through.
It has. And also, Joe Madden came out earlier this offseason and said that Joe Adele needed more time in the minor.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. He only hit 161 in his handful
Yeah.
season. So, which it's okay because Adele's only 21.
I'd say Adele's got a bright future.
He
A
does.
very bright future.
The Angels need to not rush him. That's
yes.
definitely.
Don't mess that up.
Which I understand last year because there was no minor league season.
Yeah, there were a lot of guys who wouldn't have even sniffed the major league level last year that ended up playing pretty significant time.
Exactly. So again, it's just more the circumstances, kind of just how everything played out last year.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense why Adele was on the team.
Yep.
But even in spring training last year, before COVID shut everything down, people were thinking that Adele was going to be on the opening day roster.
Yeah.
Which I guess it kind of made sense at the time, but it's pretty clear now that Adele does need more time.
Plenty more time.
Assuming that we play a full 162 games this year and that the minor leagues will actually have a season, I wouldn't imagine unless Adele tears it up in AAA, we probably won't see him until the All-Star break.
Yep.
At the earliest, I would think.
Yep.
Or unless they have injuries again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's mostly what happened this weekend. Archie Bradley also signed with the Phillies.
Yes, yeah, Archie Bradley, Alex Wood with the Giants. Just some. This is speaking of the Angels again. Like they let arguably their best relief pitcher leave in Hansel Robles.
That's right.
And he was a fan favorite.
He was. Yeah, I don't know if his character cleaned up though or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember when he was with the Mets, he kind of had some character issues.
He did.
So it kind of makes me wonder if there was maybe some stuff going on that we don't know about.
Very well could have.
But I do think the Angels have a bright future. I think in a way, again, on paper they look really good, but we're just going to have to see how the season plays out for them.
Mm-hmm.
David Fletcher should be getting a lot of starts this year.
Yep.
It's like he's probably going to take over their shortstop position.
Yeah, I would expect that.
Assuming because Angelton Simmons is a free agent, so
yeah,
we'll see. I'm rooting for them. I hope they do have a good year.
Absolutely. But yeah, to jump back to Archie Bradley quick, I heard that his ERA was like twice as good as the Phillies bullpen this past season.
Yeah,
like I think he was like 4 runs better than the Angels or than the Phillies bullpen.
He is definitely a major upgrade for that bullpen. I know. So being a Diamondbacks fan, Archie was with us for years. I remember when he got drafted,
a while,
and he was supposed to be like our premier ace.
Yep.
People were comparing him to Brandon Webb.
Yeah.
And arguably Brandon Webb is the best homegrown starter we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And Archie was great when he first came up, but when he got hit in the face by that liner in his 5th start, I think, he never got that confidence back in the rotation.
Yeah.
And so when 2017 came around, they moved to the bullpen, and he was brilliant.
He was amazing.
Like 2017 was great. 2018 was okay. 2019 was a little better.
Yep.
2020 was okay, I guess, but when he went to Cincinnati in 6 games, he had a 1.17 ERA.
Yep.
In a hitter's ballpark.
Yes.
So I think the Phillies did a good thing here.
Do you think he immediately jumps into the closer role? Do you think there's anyone that Philadelphia has that could even compete?
Well, Philadelphia has Hector Neris.
Okay. Could.
Neris has been their closer the last few years. I'm going to look at stats really quick.
Is David Robertson still under contract, isn't he? He signed there for a couple years.
I believe he is.
So he could factor in, assuming that he's scheduled to start spring training and start the regular season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would assume the Phillies aren't going to name a closer right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And Aries did struggle in a short sample last year,
Mm-hmm.
24 games, but not terribly. But I mean, you assume in a 162 game season, it would have been better numbers.
Yes.
But he
Yes.
has been their closer since 2017. He's recorded, let's see, what's the math here? He's recorded 67 saves.
Okay.
He recorded 5 saves last year. So I would assume that he probably is the closer going into spring training, but I don't imagine Girardi's going to name a skipper right out of, or a closer right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Archie was kind of expected to be the closer in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. But he never. I mean, you guys always seem to have someone you trusted more than him.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, we had some struggles with closers
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and Archie was a good setup man.
Yep.
But
He was always kind of like the high leverage seventh inning, two guys on base. You need two outs. He was usually the guy that,
exactly,
watching from afar, he was usually the guy that you guys would go to.
exactly. Yeah, he was more of like the big situations guy. We did use him in the closer's role every now and again, but he never
Mm-hmm.
actually won the job.
Yes.
Um, but I think it's a good signing for Philly too.
Absolutely.
It's a major upgrade to the bullpen, and the Phillies have no business not being a good team.
Yeah.
Like on paper, they're like the Angels; they're a good club,
Yep.
and I understand they've had some bad luck,
Yes.
and it didn't help that Gabe Kapler ran them into the ground 2 years
Yeah.
in a row at the end stretch.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I think it's a good signing as well, and I think Alex Wood to the Giants is actually a good signing too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I root for him. I've rooted for him all the time. I love his delivery. He's a good lefty. If I remember correctly, he had a down year in 2020 and maybe 2019, but I know he's got a good career body of work. His arm hasn't been taxed too much. I know he was used out of the bullpen quite a bit early on with the Dodgers, and I think he could be not, he's not going to blow the world up, but I think he could be a very good middle to top of the rotation guy for the Giants.
Yeah, and San Francisco's got a young rotation, so
Mm-hmm.
and Woods had injuries the last 2 years, so
Yep.
um, I think this is kind of a good prove your worth it again.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Um, and again, if the Giants just fall out of earth and
Yeah.
completely fall flat on their face, they can easily move him.
Easily.
Believe it or not, Wood won 16 games in 2017.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He had the. I don't even think. I don't think Wood was supposed to be a starter for that Dodgers team
No,
either.
he was
Yeah.
supposed to be out of the pen,
Yep.
and he won 16 games for them that year
Yep.
in 25 starts.
It's just how the Dodgers roll.
So
Yeah.
today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day,
Yep.
and I think it's only appropriate to talk about this. I know that the country is in a lot of social injustice right now. There's been a lot of talks just about like race in the workplace, race just in the world, in the country. Um, so it's kind of, and with all the tension that's been around the last few years, we've seen more people in sports, especially, become vocal about
Mm-hmm.
racial and social injustice and just standing up for the cause. I don't know if you read this article, but I was browsing through ESPN this morning as we were kind of
Okay.
looking for stuff to talk about. And Doug Glanville, who is an analyst, and I know he does some weekday games for
Mm-hmm.
television, he wrote a really good piece. And we'll post a link on our Twitter and Facebook pages so you all can read that as well. Um, but Glanville, over the years, has been a candidate, like softly rumored to manage a baseball club one day. Um, people really like him. They think that he's got a good mindset. They think with analytics, he's got good. Uh, I guess mindset is the right word. the people think that he's capable to be a major league manager one day. And he wrote this really good article about why MLB needs more black managers, but why it won't be him right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about a specific incident in his home in Connecticut where one day he was shoveling his driveway with snow, and a police officer pulled up across the street and was parked there for a good like 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
And Doug saw this, but didn't really think much of it. And then all of a sudden, the cop comes out of the car. And this was back in 2014, by the way.
Okay.
The cop comes out of the car and asks Glanville. Here, I'm gonna find the exact quote. He rudely asked if I was shoveling other people's driveways to make some extra bucks. And he told him very bluntly that it was his home.
Yeah.
I guess there was another exchange. The cop made like a sarcastic remark, according to the article, and as a result, in the town he lives in, they actually made the Glanville Law. Glanville Law came to be, which means that officers cannot cross town lines and enforce municipal laws of a different town. So this cop wasn't from the town that Glanville lives in. I'm not sure what the cop was doing there.
Yeah.
It's not extremely important. But Glanville goes on in the article to just talk about how right now, with the way things are in the country, he does not feel safe leaving his family over the course of a year, traveling with a ball club and trying to run a major league team.
And that's understandable, because we're in a very interesting time. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of questions that we as a nation need to ask ourselves, and there's a lot of answers that I just don't think people have quite yet. There's not a universal answer that we can all agree on quite yet.
Yeah, and honestly, I never thought about it. When he brought it up, I never thought of it that way, of someone not taking an opportunity like this. Glanville does mention in the article in 2014 he interviewed for the Tampa Bay Rays job after Joe Madden left.
Okay.
And he said that of all the interviews that he'd been to, the Rays had the most diverse candidates. And back in 1999, the league came up with the selling rule where teams had to consider minority candidates.
Yep.
And I know this has kind of been a talk over the years, because up until 2018, there wasn't a major league skipper who was born outside the U.S. And then the Red Sox hired Alex Cora.
Yep.
And changed that narrative. But I thought it was interesting, just kind of reading that and hearing Doug's thoughts. And by the way, Doug is a great baseball mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched it. I don't know if you've all watched him on ESPN or whatnot, but he knows what he's talking about. He knows how the game works. He knows just the basic fundamentals. I mean, he knows what he's doing, and I understand why teams think he would be a great fit as a major league skipper, much like Aaron Boone. But he does bring up an interesting point of like, right now is not a good time.
Yes.
So that was just my thought on that. I thought it was a good little piece to read. I recommend everyone should read that if they've got time throughout today. And like I said, we'll post it on our pages, so then you can get easy access to it.
As far as other baseball news, other than Yankee fans nearly like forcing a trade, it's crazy. I was just browsing through, looking for any baseball news, any sports news in general, and I'm not sure what the Twitter man's name was, but somebody essentially just started some rumors about the Yankees and the Reds being in a Luis Castillo talk, and that kind of progressed throughout the day until the Reds GM and Jeff Passan shut it down. and it's really incredible just how far a fan base can carry even the slightest bit of news.
I saw that Gleyber Torres was
Yeah, that's great. I understand that Luis Castillo he's a good pitcher, and he's only got time to get better. But Gleyber Torres is just a I think Gleyber Torres is a better hitter than Luis Castillo is as a pitcher. Pitching is very important. Pitching wins you games in October, and the Yankees need pitching, but you just Gleyber Torres could be your shortstop of the future for the next 15 years.
exactly.
And I just think that that'd have been a little too much. So I don't expect a Luis Castillo to the Yankees. I frankly don't expect Luis Castillo anywhere. Is it the smartest move the Reds can make if they think that they can compete with teams like the Dodgers and the Braves this year and maybe next year? Then sure, if they think they can win a pennant, go for it. But are they trying to do that? Are they trying to kind of walk a fine line? You'd think if they were serious about winning, that they would have, without a doubt, done everything they can to try to bring Trevor Bauer back. Um, I think it might almost be better to try to maximize the value that Luis Castillo has from a contract perspective. I forget how many years. He's got a few more years of control, and every day he spends in a Reds uniform, he has, one less day of team control, and that's only going to lower his trade value.
The way
So I,
the way I see it is the Reds are in a position where they can win. The
yes.
As competitive as the Central is, at the same time, anyone can run away with it. And
Hmm.
we saw what the Reds did last year in the short sample size. And it's not out of the question. I think they can win that division.
Yeah.
They've got the offense, they've got the pitching. They're a pretty balanced team to begin with. Um, I honestly don't see how they could. I don't think it would be a complete failure this year if they did, because the Cardinals, they're going to be a good team. The Brewers, we assume, are going to be a good team.
Hmm.
In some way, shape, or form, the Cubs will probably
The
be.
Cubs will, yeah, they'll probably be competitive. I don't know about a quote unquote good team,
Yeah,
but
I don't think they're going to be in it at the end, but
yeah,
they'll put up a fight. They'll
absolutely.
kind of be that pesky neighbor that keeps giving you
Hmm.
business, trying to be there. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the Brewers, the Cardinals, and the Reds. And
Yep,
to me, Cincinnati seems like the most balanced team
it
that can
does.
win that division.
Yep.
As far as competing with the Braves and the Dodgers, and maybe even the Mets, if the Mets actually play like,
Yeah, if the Mets don't, Mets
yeah,
themselves.
they don't find a way to screw everything up. I don't really like the Reds' chances deep into an October run, but I do like their chances to at least compete in that division and
Yes.
maybe acquire some additional pieces at the trade deadline to help them get where they want to be.
And maybe that's their plan. Maybe their plan, why shell out 35, just to throw a number out there, why shell out 35 million a year for um a Trevor Bauer when, as you saw in 2019, they didn't give up a whole lot to acquire a Trevor Bauer. I know that, at that time he had that incident in Kansas City where he just threw a ball into the stands.
Yeah,
And so he kind of was at odds with the team in general. But I think it's very possible they have a deep farm system. I think it's very possible that they could go out and just acquire another guy who's got a year or two of control that they can try to piece together with the already uh, really talented rotation that they have. They only need one more guy, and they could have another 1, 2, 3 big three duo or trio with Sonny Gray and Luis Castillo. So maybe that's their plan, is to go and get a guy at the deadline.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that again, they're in that position. They can make it happen.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, if they do go and try and get another starter, it's going to be a cheap contract.
Yes.
They're not going to go and spend loads of money like they did on Castellanos and Mustakis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but someone else also brought up a good point. They do need an upgrade at shortstop,
Yes.
and
That they
so
do.
like the rumor of Gleyber Torres was like unreal, but it also made
Yeah.
sense because
Yep.
they could upgrade there. But giving up Luis Castillo for Gleyber Torres just doesn't make sense.
No.
And the Yankees are not going to part ways with Torres.
No.
Not like that.
No. Do we have really? It's been besides those couple moves, it's been pretty quiet.
Yeah,
And
there's a. I mean, hopefully we'll see something soon. I know there's
yeah, my
around Fernando Tatis Jr.,
mm,
but nothing really more than that.
my guess is probably I'd look for early February, maybe mid February, once teams know for certain that they're showing up. I don't know what the date is as far as pitchers and catchers reporting, but I think once MLB teams know the whens and the wheres, I think we can start to see, because there's probably upwards of 10 to 15 decent middle of the rotation starting pitchers still out there, and there's always teams that need middle of the rotation starting pitchers. I would expect somewhere between early and mid February, once we get a season length officially hashed out. I know Commissioner Manfred is asserting that there's going to be a 162 game season, a full spring training. Um, I think if we can get a guarantee that that's at least the system we're going to try to do, I'm sure there'll be plenty of cancellations due to Corona. Um, but I think if we can make sure that we got those two things, maybe even get a final decision on the universal DH. I think once those three pegs fall, you can expect to see a pretty big flood of free agent signings.
I agree. I think Toronto's situation is going to
Mm-hmm.
have to be figured out too. I know Charlie Montoya was saying that free agents were asking if they were going to be playing in Canada or not.
Yeah, yeah, that's still a big question.
Yeah, so I think even then, once we know that, we could see the Blue Jays making some big moves.
I tell you what, it was it. I dislike the Blue Jays, but it was really cool seeing them play in Buffalo. Like I don't know. I don't know how MLB capable that stadium could be, or if another location could be chosen and turned into an MLB stadium. But Buffalo would be a cool place to see another team.
Yeah, maybe in the future, part of
Yep.
an expansion, Buffalo could be in the mix. I think part of it will come down to if a minor league season actually happens.
Yes.
Because if that's the case, I think it's safe to assume that Toronto will probably play at Rogers Center.
And we do I know that the whole minor leagues were, totally ripped apart and piecemealed back together. That is taking effect this season, correct?
Yes, that is effective this year.
So I do wonder. I wonder what we're gonna see as far as that. I know minor league teams have had close to a year or two now to figure this stuff out. Um, but that's probably the biggest thing I'm interested in seeing is just how the minor league season plays out, because that's almost as important as making sure we get a full MLB regular season, is to make sure we get close to a full minor league season to get some of these prospects some real playing time against level competition.
Yes, that absolutely is important. Well, I think that's it. That was pretty much most of the news from throughout the weekend. Uh, Again, it's been a slow off season, but hopefully things
Oh
start
yeah.
picking up. We're getting close. I know usually pitchers and catchers report around Valentine's Day, so we're about
Mm-hmm.
less than a month away
Yep.
from what the hopeful date would be.
Yes.
See, we'll see where things go, and hopefully we do have a date soon about when we'll actually be together or when the season will actually take place.
Yep. Awesome. First one's in the books.
First one's in the books, and many more to come for you. Be
I
sure to
hope.
support us on Twitter and Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel. And like we said, we will get on Spotify and SoundCloud here soon as time goes on.
Yep.
But for that, I'm Stephen Gossman,
I'm Cameron Lingle.
and so long from our virtual locations, and we will see you soon.
See you guys.